Go ahead.
Our mission, Helping Parents Heal, is a nonprofit organization dedicated to assisting parents whose children have passed. Through support and resources offered, we aspire to help individuals become shining light parents, meaning a shift from a state of emotional heaviness to one of hopefulness and greater peace of mind. HPH goes a step beyond other groups by allowing the open discussion of spiritual experiences and afterlife evidence in a non dogmatic way. Helping Parents Heal affiliate groups welcome everyone, regardless of religious or non religious background, and encourage open dialogue. Attendance at this meeting is voluntary. We hope that participants will learn from and share with each other. Discussions here are not designed to replace traditional therapy or spiritual counseling. Zoom meetings run by leadership are not confidential. These meetings typically feature guest presenters and are posted on YouTube so that affiliate members worldwide can watch and benefit. Neither type of Helping Parents Heal meeting is designed to replace traditional therapy or spiritual counseling. Helping Parents Heal offers a wide variety of speakers, allowing parents to learn about many possible ways to heal. This includes presenters covering progressive topics such as afterlife evidence and connecting with our children who've passed. The views expressed by our guest speakers may or may not reflect the opinions of Helping Parents Heal leaders and members, so we ask that you take from their presentations whatever may benefit you personally. Welcome, everyone. We're so glad you're with us this evening, and we're all in for a real treat to have Dr. Mark Pitstick with us.
Yes, we are in for an enormous treat having Dr. Mark Pitstick with us. He is such a huge part of helping parents heal, and I know that all of you recognize him. We're going to go into a little bit about how he came to be who he is right now. But before we do, I just want to ask everyone to put who you are, where you're from. If you're an affiliate leader, caring listener, which is Mark's domain, or a board member, and then the name of your child in the chat box. We would love to be able to recognize these gorgeous children while we're having this meeting tonight. And I'm just so grateful to have all of you here. I want to just let you know that we had an incredible interview with Jeffrey Olson last week, and just yesterday he ended up back in the hospital. We had told you that he had broken his femur last fall, and he was healing nicely. He's in the ICU, but he is planning to get out as quickly as possible on antibiotics. So if all of us here in the meeting and anyone watching from wherever you are, please, please send as much love and healing to Jeffrey as possible. We love him so much. He's such a huge part of helping parents heal as well. Thank you for all of those beautiful hearts and praying hands. And anyway, I'm going to go ahead and read Mark's bio. And Mark and I go way back. He is one of the first people that I met in terms of providers in helping parents heal. He is someone who has been a steadfast supporter of helping parents heal from the very beginning. And I feel so fortunate that he has so much faith in me and in this organization. And I credit it to all the kids. So anyway, he's an internationally recognized author, speaker, counselor, and researcher who has spent more than 40 years exploring consciousness, the afterlife, and the healing that comes from understanding that love continues beyond the physical death. He is the author of several influential books, and too many to mention, but the first one was Soulproof, and he'll talk a little bit about that this evening, as well as I think many of you know about this book, which is Shining Light Parents Speak, when he interviewed 150 of our affiliate leaders and caring listeners and put his findings into this book with several of our affiliate leaders and caring listeners helping him. The 11 Questions, which is a fascinating book. He asked experts from the Afterlife community to answer 11 questions all of the questions were the same, all of the people were different and very well known. Um, and then the afterlife evidence, and he's featured in the Soulproof documentary. Through his writing, counseling, and research, he has helped countless people find hope, healing, and a deeper understanding of life's greatest mysteries. Dr. Pitstick also serves on the leadership team of the SoulPhone Foundation, working alongside Dr. Gary Schwartz and other researchers to advance groundbreaking research into communication with people in spirit. What I appreciate most about Dr. Mark Pitstick is his ability to combine scientific inquiry with genuine compassion and hope. He's one of the most compassionate and empathic people that I know. His work reminds us that our connections with our loved ones continue and that love never dies. We're wishing him a very happy birthday, an early one tonight. And please join me and Irene in welcoming the wonderful Dr. Mark Pitstick. Welcome, Mark.
Well, thank you. What a opening. I think I should just end now because I can't do any better than what already said. First of all, I just want to honor Elizabeth and Irene. Few people will ever know how very much they do for this group. And so let's have some applauses and all the things you do. So fire away. Let's chat.
Okay, so let's go ahead and start with the questions. And I am really excited because I think we have a really nice set of questions. And one of the things that I've really wanted to ask Mark all along is what first led him to explore the question of life after death. So tell us a little bit about that, Mark.
Yeah, two parts. First of all, I think it's my soul's mission. And there's a number of evidence for that, and we don't have time to share it all. But for example, when I was 6 years old, my parents showed me a beautiful sunset, and I told them it reminded me of God. And we went to Lutheran church. There's always God the Father, God this and that. And they were perplexed why I would equate a sunset with Creator, and only told me that 20 years later when I was in theology school. And then over the years, probably about 12 times, people who can see energies, auras, psychics, mediums. And most recently, I had a Life Between Lives deep session, 4 hours, Michael Newton's work. And all of them have pretty much said the same thing independently. I'm a unique soul on earth, a teaching soul. Some use the term blueprinter, where I come into an area that's ripe for a global transformation and do what I can to help reach that tipping point. And I share this, by the way, not to brag or anything, because you realize on a soul level, there's no hierarchy or anything. We're just all doing the best we can out there. So that's one thing. It's my job. That's why I came here to do. But second, working in hospitals, starting at age 19 as a respiratory therapist part-time through pre-med and theology school, and working almost every shift because I work nights, on weekends, ER and ICU, being around people who passed, including little kids. It just brought me to my knees and made me then search for meaningful answers. Is there really an afterlife or not? I mean, that's a pretty important question, and I just won't keep in suspense. It's been proven without a doubt, irrefutably proven now. So, yay, great news.
Well, given your training and experience in theology and psychology and afterlife evidence, what most convinces you that our loved ones continue living after they pass on?
Yeah, it's the breadth and depth of evidence, Elizabeth. And we break it down into three categories. And all this is discussed in my little book called The Afterlife Evidence. It's at soulproof.com/shop. Everything's free. I mean, all the digital products are free. So the afterlife evidence. But Dr. Schwartz and I broke it down into, first of all, clinical evidence. And this is one most people are aware of. Near-death experiences, after-death communications, terminal lucidity, deathbed visions, etc. There are 8 categories of clinical data. And then there is experiential data that is based on firsthand experience. And most of you have had one or more firsthand experiences. And while that category is the least scientific, it's the most personally meaningful because, when you sense, especially you're a child, it's like nobody has to convince you, But then the third category, the scientific evidence, is heavily on my mind because the last 4 months, that's pretty much all I've been doing. First of all, helping Dr. Schwartz edit his scientific journal paper, which will come out in the autumn, the Journal of Scientific Exploration, but then wrote his book, The SoulPhone Experiments, chronicling 30 years of research at the University of Arizona, all of which points to definitively demonstrate scientifically that no one really dies. So we live in an exciting realm because what I just said about the scientific evidence, that can never be stated before reliably and accurately. So it's actually the beginning of a new era for humanity where life after death has been scientifically proven.
Oh, that's such a wonderful thing to hear for all of us here on this meeting. I think that this is something that's extremely important to all of us. Um, and I also just want to say that it's exciting that that you're working with Dr. Schwartz to be able to get these books out. And I know that one of them is going to be available, hopefully, at the conference. We're very excited about that. And you're in the process of editing it for currently. Is
Yeah,
that correct?
it'll be ready. That's a big driver for us. And so all the attendees at the conference will get a free copy.
Oh, that's just amazing. And so gracious of you. Um, So tell us how your understanding of life, death, and healing has evolved over the years, because you were saying that it brought you to your knees to be in this situation where you were dealing with parents who had children pass early on in your career. Has this knowledge helped you, and how has it helped you?
Yeah, that's a huge question. I had to smile when I saw it, like, well, do you have a week? I mean, how is life, death, and healing? But in a nutshell, it's this. You remember the song we sang when we were little kids, row, row, row the boat gently down the stream. Life is but a dream. And it's really true. What we're experiencing, I know it looks solid. I know it looks like your child disappeared and you lost them, but none of that is true. Um, and so the three biggest illusions that set people back, that put them in the middle of needless fears, are the fear that anyone dies, the fear that you lost your loved ones, you won't see them again, and the fear that you're separate from Creator. And needless fear and worry and angst and all that has been caused by those three erroneous beliefs. Now, again, none of them are true. So I say what I understand now is that, really seen from the big picture of life, you could say the greater reality, um, that life is perfect. It's exquisitely set up perfectly. And it's a matter of us to realize that. So this idea of heaven, and this was known in the Aramaic language millennia ago, heaven and hell were states of mind, consciousness. Yeah, there are realms like the afterlife you can be in, but first and foremost, they're degrees of awareness about how life is set up. So you can be in heaven any moment, no matter what's going on. I mean, Gandhi was shot 3 times in the abdomen, and as he lay there dying, he was repeating names of God, Ram, Ram. He was in heaven. He knew. So eternity doesn't start someday, maybe. We're in eternity now. And heaven, you don't have to wait till you pass on to be it. You can be in heaven now. And you also don't have to wait till you pass on to communicate with your kids. They're right beside you. You can do that now. So, Ram Dass is one of my early spiritual teachers. Be here now. And it's really great advice because there is truly nothing to worry about, nothing to fear. So when you can release all that, just relax, go with the flow of life, know that you're an integral part of Creator, then you get to enjoy this wonderful, totally safe adventure that we're all part of.
And it is an adventure. It's actually very exciting when we understand that our kids are with us every single step of the way and that we will be physically together again, happy, healthy, and home. But I also, you were saying that life is but a dream, but I want to just say that just as Dr. Christopher Kerr says, death is but a dream. It's un for us to understand that we don't die is probably one of the most exciting um, and hopeful things that I have learned through this experience of having both of my children transition, both of my children in spirit transition. I have two more children here, and I feel very lucky about that. But let's go from this discussion a little bit to the Soul Phone project because that was enormous, and the documentary was enormous as well. And excuse me, the Soul Phone, that whole project is enormous, and I'm very excited. I think that every parent is that at some point we'll be able to pick up a phone and talk to our kids in spirit. But you've been closely involved with it for 10 years. For parents who are not involved or familiar with this project, could you tell just a little bit about what it is and what you and Dr. Schwartz have been doing through the Soul Phone project?
Sure. Well, this all kind of, for those who don't know much about all this, Dr. Schwartz was a former Harvard and Yale professor. So he was a mainstream scientist, did not believe in afterlife, thought that consciousness was a temporary byproduct of the human brain. However, he had two near-death experiences when he was a child, and this kind of weighed on his mind like, oh, what was that about? So at some point then, he was a tenured professor at Yale and walked away from it and came to the University of Arizona in 1988 because he wanted to explore less conventional topics. And that included energy healing, he started with, but then the question of all questions, the survival of consciousness is the way they put that, life after death, another way to put it. So in 1997, he did research, and this is described in his book, The Afterlife Experiments, with people like John Edward and George Anderson and others, that proved without a doubt that some mediums had high abilities to communicate with people who had passed on, which is a tacit way of saying there is an afterlife. I mean, you can't communicate with them if they're not alive and well in another realm. So after that, he formed friendships, connections with some of these mediums, top mediums in the country, and they started telling him individually, Dr. Schwartz, I keep hearing from Albert Einstein and Thomas Edison, this guy named David Bohm, B-O-H-M, and they're saying you're supposed to build technology to allow communication between dimensions, between us on Earth and those in the afterlife. And so after a couple of years, I was like, okay, I will. And that was 22 years ago. And it's not been easy, and you'll be able to read about it soon in his book, but it's been quite an experience. And all of his different experiments showed us a lot about what we call the physics of post-material people. In other words, you know, your kids are not just in spirit. They're not just gauzy energy flying around. They have density, or can if they want to. They can make sounds. They can be seen. They can make motions and, for example, slow down laser and photon beams. It's been so fun to learn more about those in the next realm, and your kids are enjoying it. I kind of envy them in a way. I mean, Earth is the toughest place to be. So there are 4 anticipated types of technology for the Soul Phone project. Now, the first is the Soul Switch, and we have different versions of that, but not fast enough. In other words, we need it to be near real time, 10 seconds or less. Think about a keyboard, a key on your keyboard. That's a Soul Switch, for example. And then we put 40 or so of those together and have a Soul Keyboard, which will allow texting and typing them with your loved ones in the afterlife. After that, soul audio, being able to talk, hear their voice, and soul video, which would be just what we're doing now, video conferencing. So Dr. Schwartz, after all these years, no longer considers it a matter of if, but a matter of when. And so he has a team. He's had the most wonderful assistants over the years, high level people working with him. So keep hope alive, be in touch with your children any way you can. For example, my Afterlife contact session that's described in article number 9, but know that the technology is coming that will allow a much more real and immediate visit with them.
Beautiful. And you were saying high level people working with him, both on this side of the veil and the other, correct?
Yeah, you got it. Yeah, on the Earth side, amazing engineers, software specialists, I mean, optical scientists. And that's the nice thing about being at the university. He had postdoctorate scholars who were available to help him. But yeah, on the post-material side, what we call the A team, there are 30 or so primarily that we've worked with through a number of mediums, and Suzanne Giesman, Mark Anthony. I mean, it's the same crowd. And Dr. Schwartz's wife, Rhonda, she's amazing abilities. And so I named some of those names before, Nikola Tesla and others. However, we are told that for every one of them, because we can only work with so many efficiently, for every one of them, there are hundreds more waiting in the wings who want to help us on Earth, who want to help us heal ourselves and our planet. So we already have plans set for what we're calling Greater Reality University. Dr. Schwartz already has 45 high-level teachers, I mean, these are educators, inventors, scientists, who want to be faculty members on this university and provide classes online, just like we're doing now, to help us. So I know life on Earth can be tough, but just know that there's a whole lot of hope on the horizon.
That sounds fascinating to have an online university to be able to discuss and learn more about the afterlife and this connection and communication as well. What an exciting thing to.
Yeah, I got to tell you real quickly, and this is the back of the book Dr. Schwartz and I wrote, Greater Reality Living. So Rhonda was being the medium, and we had some of the people I just mentioned. And so I asked the question through her, when we have the technology to allow it, would you all be willing to give webinars? And all of a sudden, Rhonda started laughing, and we're like, what's going on? She said, they're pushing each other out of the way to get first in line.
Oh,
And yeah, and Tesla said, you'll break the internet. So yeah, stay tuned.
well, he's going to have to help from the other side so that the internet doesn't get broken, obviously.
Yeah,
What a fascinating thing. And I want to switch gears now, and I don't want to switch too much, but we have so much to cover. And one of the things that I'd like to talk about is your book and then your documentary, Soulproof. This came out years ago. And if you could tell us what inspired you to write Soulproof and what the term means to you, could you tell us about what that means?
sure. So when I was 19, and it was one little boy who passed, 5-year-old boy, and another one, Stevie, that just touched me so much. So I started at that moment collecting everything I could, one way or the other. Is there really an afterlife or not? I'd hear something on a radio show, I'd take notes, something I'd read in a magazine, write down. And then over the years, I realized I have boxes of this stuff. And I'm like, I think there's a book in there. It just takes a lot of work to create it. So that was in the late 1990s that I created Soulproof. The term refers to, uh, tries to help people realize that just like a watch is shockproof and waterproof, that we're soul-proof. In other words, we can't really die. We couldn't die. In my book, Soulproof, I have a question that says, All right, this is a multiple choice question. Which one of these would kill your soul the most? A 38 bullet, a nuclear missile, a bazooka, I mean, name anything, a tank round. And the answer, none of the above. Your soul can't be killed. So that's really important to remember. First of all, that we are beings of spirit, and this book contained proof that we're souls. But secondly, help us realize just how wonderfully set up. In the Bible and some Gospels, they talk about we're held in the bosom of God. What we are. I woke up one morning and I was aware, it was like, oh, you open one eye, what time is it? But I was aware some round had been going through my head like it had been for hours. And I thought, well, I want to catch this. So I closed my eye and pretended I was still asleep. And I caught the last round because you know how quickly things shift from dream world to waking world. And I wrote it down quickly. And here's what it said. This earthly experience is a totally safe, meaningful, and magnificent adventure amidst forever. So the more we realize that, the more we're free. Just like Jesus and others say, you'll know the truth, and the truth will set you free.
Oh, that's a beautiful way to think about this life. And then also, this is a quote that we have on your articles every time that you send an article into our Helping Parents Heal newsletter, and that is monthly. So if people are interested in being able to read those articles, we have them archived on our Helping Parents Heal website, which is helpingparentsheal.org. And the newsletter tab has every newsletter going back to, I believe, 2012. So those articles are in there and they're all beautiful. So have you, speaking of those articles, have you received feedback from people whose lives have been changed by your products? And I guess people, by meaning people, we mean parents, I would say.
Sure. Yeah, and that's part of what keeps me going. People ask, how do you do this? And I'm like, well, it's an honor, it's a privilege, but also reading, I get numerous ones every day. I mean, people who found out they have a terminal disease, and yet at that moment, they realize it's okay. And partly, like one guy said, I just found out I have a terminal condition, but I had just finished reading your book, Soulproof, and I can say that I realized I was surrounded by love and it was going to be okay and I was going to get through this with grace. And people who are going through the toughest of the tough. Some people who were suicidal, like I had decided, that that's it. And they say, I read your book or I used your product, I read your article, I decide, I'm going to stick around. I'm going to try it. I'm going to stay here longer. And yeah, certainly a number of parents in that boat. So it's eminently worthwhile and rewarding.
Well, and I also just want to mention that you do have a special Zoom meeting every single month, which is called Ask the Soul Doc. And you answer any questions that parents want to ask you about the afterlife or anything that they actually want to ask. And you're so helpful and healing to all of those parents and to all of us because we put those up on YouTube as well. So they're available on our YouTube channel. And by the way, I just have to give a plug to our YouTube channel. We've just reached over 50,000 subscribers to the channel, which is a very exciting thing because we were at 8,800 on May 20th. And so it's grown that quickly in that short amount of time. And we're very proud. Irene and I have been working night and day to get this
Nice.
to
Yep.
happen. But
Super job. Well, I'd just like to say, yeah, those Ask the Soul Doctor classes, the second Tuesday of every month, 7 p.m. Eastern. And I noticed some of our regulars on here, and I love you all. And one of the cool things about this, when you get a bunch of parents together, and of course, all your kids working in the wings, we've had some really good things happen that shouldn't happen, technological, and so I'm not a medium, or at least I couldn't make a living at it. But I see Liza smiling. Yeah, you've seen some of these, and Maria, and So yeah, we'd love for you to join us, and I will share 3 of these, by the way, at the conference when I speak.
Well, those no other explanations, as Suzanne Giesman says, are always so exciting. And I know that those have happened for the affiliate leader and caring listener interviews as well. That obviously, maybe you could just tell the inspiration for this title here, if that's okay, and
Sure.
who helped you write it, and how that came about in that interview that you were doing.
Well, you and your cohort, I think her name's Irene, came up with the idea. You're like, Mark, we thought it would be really smart to interview the affiliate leaders and caring listeners. Like you said, there are about 150 of them. And we're wondering how we might do that. And I'm like, are they hinting that I do this? Because you two are so busy. So I volunteered, because I've hosted 2 radio shows. I'm really good at interviewing. And Lynn Hollahan was my moderator, and Elizabeth, you took over a couple of times when I couldn't, but we interviewed, and it was just the most amazing thing. But the very first night of interviews, I was interviewing Allison and David. Allison is their last name, and they were talking about their son Davy. And they said, they were talking about science, and they said, he's really loud and clear. He comes through clear. Well, just when they said this, and I was in the same room, all of a sudden, from this angle coming into my head, it said, Mark, you ought to write a book with the best of these interviews. A lot of parents will benefit from it. And you can watch it on the video. And I actually looked up and I touched my head and I said, yeah, David, I think I just heard from Davy. And you're right, he is a loud one. And then I had to sit there for a moment. Keep in mind, I've conducted thousands of interviews in my life. And I said, I'm going to need a moment here. I was like breathing deeply and oh my God, it was amazing. Well, that then is, and he gave me the title, the outline, and then the rest, came together with these wonderful 4 moms who were the co-editors.
Yes, and the moms who helped were also incredibly hard workers. Obviously, you had Allison who was helping you, as well as Anne Marie Taplin and Dolores Cruz and Nancy Hayna, I believe, are the ones
Right,
who were doing
right.
the book with you. It came together, and it's one of the most helpful, healing books that you can read about the afterlife. And it also just kind of explains what all of us as caring listeners, affiliate leaders, board members of Helping Parents Heal, how we've moved forward and healed without leaving our kids behind. And this is all wonderful, but I would love to hear you say something about, and before I do that, I want to say that we would love to leave a little time for questions. So if you have questions, write them in the chat box and Irene will be asking them. But in the meantime, I'd like to ask you what you would say to someone who wants evidence but remains skeptical. How do you get through to a parent or to anyone who has had someone transition who
Yep.
is skeptical about the afterlife?
Yeah, and I totally understand it. And by the way, being a skeptic is a good thing, but you just want to be an open-minded skeptic, not a closed-minded skeptic. Well, oftentimes words can fall short because and these are big topics. Your kids are in another space-time dimension. And so after a while, words sound like, the Charlie Brown's parents, wah, wah, wah. Uh, and so it's important then to go beyond words. And that's the reason for centering practices I discuss in article number 77 at soulproof.com. Walking in nature, meditating, playing with pets, serving others, whatever helps quiet your brain, because the brain is the biggest culprit in this. In Hindu wisdom literature, they say the brain is a wonderful slave but a horrible master because the brain perceives much less than 1% of reality, but it thinks it knows everything. And your brain, you probably experience, won't shut up. It's just like, can't. And so that's why you need to quiet the brain, be still and know I'm God, be still, know you're a part of God. And so, for example, so that's one thing, to quiet the brain. The next is to release the fear and sadness, because I mean it's such a horrible shock you all went through, and so that's why I created the holistic breathing technique, and my own version of it, which Suzanne Giesman encouraged me to do before we did a long weekend workshop together. And so this is described in article number 70, Holistic Breathing Technique. And then the technique, as all of them, is free at soulproof.com/shop. But this is 35 minutes of deep, noisy, diaphragmatic breathing. And different kinds of music in the background, me yelling out things like it's safe, you're safe on this planet, it's okay, trust God, all these things. And then you move into a beautiful meditation, which starts with the words, I remember now, I came here born on the wings of angels. And that's true. And then so that helps you. And when people do this breathing technique, typically they cry their heart out, they yell, they scream, they pound the mattress in the beginning. But after a while, they start laughing because they remember and they realize how really incredibly funny it is, all the dramas we put ourselves through, when in fact this is a virtual reality experience. A major part of our energy is at home right now, home base, heaven, the really real place, including with your loved ones and your soulmates. So yeah, use the holistic breathing technique, release that fear. And then the last thing is update your information, because some of us went to fundamentalist churches when we were younger. I went for 3 years when I was 18 to 21, because that's where my girlfriend went. And oh man, it's crazy town. And to try to wrap your head around that, God's going to put you in hell and there's only one way to salvation. You know the list. And so it's really important to release that. And one of the best ways is to learn new contemporary information, which we're talking about. So those are 3 big steps toward getting past the skepticism. It's like that if you watch the movie Ghost, and if you haven't seen it, do yourself a favor. Demi Moore, Patrick Swayze, which a lot of people think there's a strong resemblance with me, Whoopi Goldberg. And there's a moment where he, who's in spirit, pushes a penny up in the air. And so she goes from anger and sadness to, oh my God, smiling and realize it's really true. He really is right here beside me. So that's the goal, to have that aha moment. And then after that, it's a much smoother sailing.
That's a beautiful answer. And I just want to quickly say that one of the things that you've done that have been so meaningful for helping parents heal as well is the angel wash that we did at the first conference. Unfortunately, then COVID hit. We
Yeah.
couldn't we couldn't do that kind of close contact, but that was something that was so healing to so many of our members as well. And with that, Irene, I don't know if you have I
Oh,
see that there's a lot of questions.
there's
Yeah.
lots of questions, but Mark, I wanted to tell you there's so many beautiful, wonderful comments thanking you in the chat. So it's very, very nice to read. Yes.
Thank
So,
you.
do you have a specific type of meditation that you suggest for us to connect to our loved ones? How to tune into their frequency? Angela is asking.
Yeah, great question. Well, first of all, everyone's different. So seated meditation doesn't work for everyone. I wrote article number 51 about meditation and different ways to relax, but also the centering practices article that I mentioned earlier, number 77. So I would say the best type of meditation is the one that helps you quiet your brain, the one that helps you access the void, even for a second, which is the reality. That's where all the information and light, energy is stored in the void. And so anything that helps you quiet your mind, for some people, it's knitting, sewing, gardening. But remember that serving others. So many parents have found they went from the dark night of the soul to starting to see the light and sense their kids more when they got out and helped others less fortunate than themselves.
Mm, thank you. Kathy has asked a couple of questions, so I'll combine them. She said, as a grieving mom, her arms ache for her daughter, but her church wants her to leave her be in heaven with God. She's angry with God, and she's very confused about what is real, and she doesn't understand why she prayed so hard, but her daughter still passed.
Well, first of all, I'm sorry for everything you're going through, and you're certainly not alone. Lots of parents feel the same way. To address the God thing, because this is the most common question I've been asked. Why did God take my child? And so I wrote article number 78 that addresses that. And it turns out yeah, God didn't do it. In other words, when we think about the big guy in the sky, which was really the image from BC, Greek and Roman, Zeus and so on, that creates so many problems. But when we realize God is the energy behind all life, the repository of peace and creativity and love, and we're each part of that. God's like the ocean, and we're like a drop of water. So God didn't take your child away, number one. Number two, your child will always be your child in a very special way throughout eternity. However, your child is much more than a child. Your child's probably a more advanced soul than you and came here to teach you and help wake you up. So you have to remember that your child, your quote child, is really an eternal spiritual being, which we all are. The third part of that is to realize that your child's soul lessons were completed. So he or she got to graduate, got to go back home. When I trained with Brian Weiss, MD, to do past life regressions, he shared that from everything he knew, Earth is the toilet bowl of the universe. And it's beautiful in a lot of ways, but it's also very tough. So we say, oh, that's so tragic, he or she died. And I'm not making light of how tough it is when your kid passes, but really, they're the lucky ones. And a lot of cultures recognize that. They'll celebrate when someone passes. So I would say start with the holistic breathing technique and get rid of that anger, get rid of that deep sadness. Use the techniques, read the articles. But for you, since it's pretty heavy for you now, email me. And that's true for all of you, mark@soulproof.com. And I will respond with a short but information laden response. And then we'll work together. It's not a one-time deal. I'll say, do this for 30 to 60 days and let me know how you're doing. And then we'll go from there. So that's the beautiful thing about helping parents heal. You're not alone. You don't have to suffer in silence. And literally, there are lots of people here to help carry you until you can walk again.
Oh, thank you, Mark. That was just beautiful.
I know. How do I do this? It's amazing.
You are amazing. Uh, the lovely Sherry, one of our caring listeners, is asking you, what's one of the most mind-opening or transformative experiences that you've had? Thank you.
Mm, wow. Well, thank you, Sherry. Well, I would have to say that's called my own experience. And I discussed this, let me find the article, um, where I share, let's see what I have this under, but this is 1997. And oh gosh, I'm not finding the number, but it's called 12 experiences, many lessons. So I share a lot of pivotal experiences in my life. But in a nutshell, in fact, it was in this room, 1997, I was doing 2 hours every morning of meditation, breathing exercises, yoga, and I was using the mantra Om, which I recommend for people. I had a couple of specialized mantras from TM and other teachers, but I like to use something that everybody can use, and it's very powerful. So I had my family's upstairs asleep. It's 5:30 in the morning, um, and I'm using Om, silently. All of a sudden, I heard Om being sung by, it seemed, hundreds of voices, male and female, and I felt like if I opened my eyes, I would see the Mormon Tabernacle Choir packed in the room with me singing Om. But I had enough wherewithal to know that if I did that, it would break contact. So I just kept silently using Om. Next, I smelled a fragrance, the most wonderful fragrance I'd ever smelled in my life, out of nowhere. Next, if you close your eyes in a darkened room, you pretty much see dark. But in this case, my eyes were filled with light, such a bright light, like people have near-death experiences, seeing the light. Next, I felt unconditional love, not forgiveness, because as the Course in Miracles says, God doesn't judge. So God doesn't need to forgive. God never judges or condemns in the first place. But I felt the unconditional love and high regard that our angels, our guides, and the light has for us. At that point, I started having tears trickling down my cheek. I'm still using Om, but man, I'm losing it real fast because all that was so powerful. And next, a vibration through my whole body. Some people say like Kundalini arising. When I was a kid, we didn't have much to do, so we'd touch our tongue to a 9-volt battery, like get a little buzz, and it's kind of fun. And well, that was through my whole body. So add all that together, I just mentioned, and I stayed with it, and then I just started laughing, and I just said, "Oh my God!" So that I consider to be a multisensory perception of creator and of really how life is set up, and that's true. That's our truest nature. So that had to be the mind blower right there. Thank you for asking.
Thank you. I think you've gone over this, but I think it's important to just ask this again. Someone is asking, how do you cope in the moment when the grief is extreme and you feel that you just can't cope? It seems impossible in those moments to come back to the truth that there is no death.
Yeah, that's a big one because the illusion of death is so convincing. And, our world doesn't help much in that regard. So much of the focus in our world is on the physical. So I would say there are a number of things you can do, and depending on what works best for you. First of all, remember your friends and family and the Helping Parents Heal team. Make a phone call, reach out, say, hey, I'm having a tough time. Next, primal scream approach is to get this out. Get a wiffle ball bat and hit a couch. Hit a pillow. Put a pillow over your mouth and scream. Native Americans who had such a well-developed cosmology and understanding would dig a hole in the ground, kneel down over the hole, and yell everything they wanted to get off their chest into it, and then fill in the hole. You can write things out. Certainly, prayer, the power of prayer, and I talk about prayer, and I think article number 88, ask for help. Hey, I'm having a tough time. Ask and ye shall receive. Get out in nature, walk. So and be good to yourself when you're going through a tough time. It's okay. I mean, everybody grieves in a different way. So cup of tea, curl up, a good show, whatever helps you feel a little bit better. Breathe. You'll realize that when you're going through that tough time, you're probably bent over and you're breathing shallowly and quickly. Bring the shoulders back and breathe deeply. So there are some ways. And again, if none of those work for you or you need more, mark at soulproof.com.
Thank you, Mark. That was beautiful. Elizabeth, I'll turn it back over to you. We have just a few minutes left.
Oh, I would love to ask one last question if possible. I would love for you to tell us what gives you the most hope for humanity. And I know that's a huge, broad question, but what would you say is that one thing that you know will allow us to move forward and be happier as we move forward? Because this time that we're going through right now is very difficult for all of us, especially as Shining Light parents, but just in general throughout the world. So, could
Yeah.
you maybe tell
Well,
us that?
yeah, it's not just one thing, it's eight. And I discussed this in article number 125, eight developments for widespread conscious living. And that's really one way to put it. And that's going to be the theme, by the way, of my presentation at Helping Parents Heal, because there's a lot of evidence, and I mean, I would love to share a little bit of it here because it's so amazing. A lot of this happened at the last conference. So as you'll see in this article, again, 125, there are a number of very hopeful, powerful factors going on, like people have had near-death experiences, and like different organizations. I mean, IONS and IANS, and I heard about this one called Helping Parents Heal. And there's all these powerful organizations, and they're working toward that. But you know what I think? That parents and your kids are going to be the tipping point. And that's what I'm going to talk about. And here's how it came. Here's partly how it came to be. Okay, so this is 2 years ago. I'm speaking at Helping Parents Heal conference. Maybe there were 700 people in the room, and we were talking about the book that just came out. And I was talking about the theme that serving others is such a key. And could it be that all of this pain y'all are going through has a meta purpose beyond which we can imagine? Well, just when I said that, something made me glance up, and I looked up. The ceiling in these ballrooms is about 30 foot high, but in that moment there was no ceiling. And what I saw were thousands and thousands of smiling faces of kids, from babies, infants, teenagers, middle-aged kids, all just smiling like, he finally got it, you know. And I glanced up and I was like, whoa. And so I came back down because, you know, I've given a talk. I finished it. Well, right after that talk, a mom came up to me and she said, can I tell you my story? I said, sure. Now, I know I'm rushing this, but you'll get it. Basically, she was a single parent. Her only child, 18, died in a car wreck, or his body died. He didn't really die. And so she didn't want to live anymore. She wanted to be where he was. So she sat down on the floor with a bottle of vodka and a bottle of pills and started taking them. Just then his phone rang, and she thought, well, I ought to see who's calling. And so she picked up, it's his best friend. And she said, oh, I'm so sorry to tell you, but my son, your best friend, passed. So they start crying together. So they're crying. And then they start talking. Oh my God, what a blessing. And this is a real key. What a blessing that we knew him for a while. What a wonderful soul he was. And he said, can I come over? I'd love to talk, you know, and see you. She said, sure. So they got together and they talked and they laughed, told stories. When he got ready to leave, she said, I want to tell you something. When you called, I was choosing suicide, and you saved my life. Well, the next day she realized she needed to do something, or she'd lapse back into that despair. So she went to a pet rescue place and said, I want to volunteer my time to help. The first person that came in was a very disheveled young lady who has obviously been crying and upset. And the girl said, I would just like to see your most loving, lovable dog. And so the mom brought this dog out. The girl hugged this dog for a half hour and cried over it. And the girl said, I'll take the dog, and I want you to know that when I came in here, I just wanted to get some love from something, and I decided now I was going to go home and end my life. And you saved my life. And I thought, oh my God, it's really as simple as that. When each one of us go out and share our light and share our greatest gifts, the pieces of the world's puzzle come together. Well, now fast forward a week later, we're having a Helping Parents Heal class. And I'm sharing some of this for the first time because, you know, it's a wild at the conference. It takes you a while to come back to earth. I hadn't told anybody, not even my partner, about that vision I had. So I started explaining it, and Elizabeth butts in. And I thought, hello, I was talking. And Elizabeth said, Oh my God, now I understand. So go ahead and tell them what Morgan had been telling you for all those years.
Well, Morgan, ever since he transitioned in 2009, he kept telling me over and over again that the children on the other side were ultimately going to save the world. And I thought, that's ridiculous. Wait a second. There's nothing going on right now. The world is pretty great. Everything is fine. And why would Morgan be telling me this? And he's been very insistent about this the whole time that I've been going on this journey of healing. And I now understand it. They are ultimately going to save us by allowing us to know that this is not it, and that everything that's going on here, that all we have to do is to love, to be loved, and to be kind to each other. And that's what we're supposed to be doing in this world, and our kids are showing us how. But the communication that we have with these kids on the other side is going to save the world, because they are the ones that are telling us as parents how to move forward and be better people and to help others as we move forward. Sorry, so that was kind of disjointed. I didn't expect
No,
to
that's
jump
okay.
in
That's
again.
perfect. And there's more to this story. So I describe it in the article, and I'll be sharing it more fully at the conference. But the point is that the greater the adversity, the greater the opportunities for love and peace and joy and healing. And you each are part of that. So from your earthly perspective, looking through that tiny pinhole, just relying on your brain, you may think, why me, God? And this is horrible and the worst that could happen. When in reality, what's going on is you're an advanced soul who chose out of love to go through this along with your child or children for really important reasons. And what could be a bigger mission than helping turn our world around and help this spread? So I applaud you, and it's been an honor to share some of this. Let me know if there's any way I can help you.
Well, I am so grateful to have you on here this evening. This has been such a wonderful meeting and so uplifting. We have lots of hearts exploding on the screen. Everyone has loved it as well. And I want to just let everybody know that Mark is going to be a keynote speaker at the conference. He's also going to be live streamed, and he's also one of our honorary board members. I feel very grateful for that. And I also just want to give love again to another one of our honorary board members who's in the ICU this evening, Jeffrey Olson. Again, any love that you can send, any healing that you can send. If you're a Reiki practitioner, if you could send some to Jeffrey, I know that he would really appreciate it as well. And we always, let's see, Mark, did you have anything else that you wanted to say, or Irene, before we close?
Just thank you.
You first, Irene.
Just thank you, Mark. We love you. We appreciate all that you do.
I love you too. And for me, soulproof.com, free, 145 articles, 8 books, 10 audio programs, documentary, radio shows, all available. And then now you know how to get a hold of me. And you deserve to feel high levels of peace, joy, wellness, and so on. And the world needs your greatest light. We talked about the parents and the kids being a tipping point, but who knows, one of you listening right now could be the 100th monkey. So thank you for doing that. If you need help on that, let us know.
Thank you, Mark. And I'm glad that you mentioned your website as well as all of these incredible articles. We'll be putting more about that in the on the YouTube video when we post it. Please be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel so that we can grow it and help as many people as we can throughout the world. It's such an important thing. We have so many incredible experts like Dr. Mark Pitstick on that YouTube channel. So the more people that it reaches, the better it is. And again, we always ask everyone to say thank you and good night. So if you'd like to do so, go ahead and unmute.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
Dr.
you
Mark.
Thank
so
you
much.
so
Thank
much,
you.
Dr.
Thank you
Pitstick.
so
Thank you so
Thank
much.
much,
you.
Mark.
You're the
Thank
best,
Thank
Dr.
you.
Mark.
you.
Thank you.
You,
Thank you,
everyone.
Good
guys. Have a
night.
good night.
Dan Geisman on Thursday, so come back and join us, okay?
Yes.
Anyway, thank you so much.
Good
Take
night.
care, everybody. Bye-bye.
Good night. Thank you.